all love a tactile feel of hardware, but let's face it, recording a DAWless jam or actual production can be a total nightmare. You have cable spaghetti, you have syncing issues. Well, I recently updated my setup and I think it addresses lots of these challenges. So please join me on a jam and behind the scenes walkthrough to show you how this works. See you on the other side. Hi, I'm Cephalus, and today I want to take you through some key challenges and how I solve them when doing DAWless recording. I'm going to talk about sync and clocking, how you can have a central brain and arrange everything so it's working together. We're going to talk about gain staging and mixing and how you can have a mixing board where all this is going in, where you can do some of the key moves so you can have a good sounding production. And we're going to talk about complexity and arrangement. How can you put the pieces so they can fit together and so you can really have a meaningful whole in a mix at the end. I hope you enjoy. And if you own your own struggles, please put them down in the comments. See you on the other side. All right, here we are behind the synths. So let's break down how that jam you just saw worked. First, the brain. Where is the MIDI? Where's the musical information? It all lives right here. Keystep Pro by Arturia. Very mighty sequencer, 4 independent channels of MIDI outputs. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go down through the sound sources later, but this is where pretty much the music lives. You can have multiple patterns, create chains, those patterns, and have scenes, which is exactly what I used in that jam to shift between the two main sections of the composition. So the MIDI output, basically the master clock, is going from this all to the other synths. So how does this work? So there are 2 MIDI outputs right here. One is going through this MIDI quadro through, so that gives 4 other MIDI outputs. One is going here, one is going here, one is going here, one is going here, and then there's additional MIDI output that's going to the drum machine. This way, all the musical information can be recorded here and played here. This sequencer also has polyphonic aftertouch, which is really great. For example, this keyboard on the Sub 25 doesn't have MIDI aftertouch, but this one does, so that's excellent. Same thing with this Korg multipoly, as we'll see later. So this is a great way to organize the MIDI information, have it all in here. Pretty much means all the syncs are synced, there's really no chaining, there's very little loss of MIDI information. It's probably not perfect, but that's exactly what we want when we don't have a DAW type approach. So that is the brain of the information. Let's go through the sound sources. So what is making noise here? All right. So from here, well, let's start with drums. Going to the Roland TR-8S, the drum machine. Again, it's synced to the Keystep Pro, and so pretty much the drums live here. These are the drums you heard, just a little fast. This is where they were in the recording. Now this is a pretty mighty drum machine. It's great because it has internal sound effects. You can do accent. It's actually a virtual analog drum machine. So it has very faithful recreations of the classic 909, 808, and like in here, 707, 727 sounds. And you can also do some compression, which is really important for drums, especially if you're gonna purely record DAWless. It's really difficult not to have appropriate compression and saturation and have it sound pretty good. So this takes care of that. But because it's still digital, it's going ultimately through electro-analog heat, and I'll get to that later when we talk about sound processing. So that's the drum machine. So it's MIDI synced with this, but basically it's played from inside here. Okay, getting back to here, first channel, we have the Moog Subsequent 25. In this case, I'm using it for a lead. Let's get rid of all the effects. Often I use it as a bass, which is why it's first in this organization. It really helps to have this stuff organized so you can ultimately develop an intuitive sense of what you're going to reach for and when you're going to reach for it during your performance and or hopefully recording. Again, the output from this is all going to this mixer. We'll get to the mixer at the end. But this is a mono output. It's first going through some effects that we'll talk about. Okay, back to Keystep Pro. Number 2 is the vocoder VC340. Again, this is recreation of the classic Roland vocoder string machine, and that's what I got it. This has divide down technology, so you can do just amazing soundscapes on this. This is just a choir with ensemble, but it has strings. It's currently fed through a phaser, which is why you're feeling the Jean-Michel Jarre vibe. Okay. So I often use this for pads and for texture. It kind of basically did a skank in a recording that you heard, which can also happen with this thing. So that's MIDI channel number 2, vocoder, string machine, again, going back into the mixer. Number 3 is the Oberheim Tail 5. So I use it in this track for the clav sound, but I use it in lots of different ways. It's an amazing synth, lots of modulation capabilities, you know, classic Oberheim stuff like that I really love. So you can see those are kind of on the left side. Very often use my left hand for this, providing texture, providing padding. Although again, this has been part of the lead sound in a jam that you heard. Number 4, Korg Multipoly. A newer synth for me. It can really do anything, so I'm just at the beginning of exploring everything it can do. I used it for bass. Here, oops, let's try this again. So, yeah, 4 oscillator per voice, 4 layers. This is only 1 layer again. This is a virtual analog machine, but that can do lots of very performable, and so it's kind of a jack of all trades for me. In this case, is taking care of bass duties, but it can do anything. It does background arpeggio, so this is kind of my X factor in the arrangement that I'm using. Over here, we also have Analog XD and West Pest. These I use mostly for demonstrations. Sometimes I'll feed them into the main recording through this submix. Elise's multi-mix here I won't talk a lot about today. So those are the main sound sources. Okay, before we get to the recording, let's talk about sound processing. So some of these synths have effects. Tail 5 here has basically a dedicated reverb, which is really good. I actually like it a lot. And then another effect we can choose from different effects. Some are better than others, but this is pretty much standalone. Doesn't need much processing. There's again some compression applied, as you'll see later. In terms of the string machine, no effects here whatsoever, purely analog affair. As a result, it's going first through a phaser, Lunar phaser here. And then it's going through this Nemesis delay. I use the filter sweep delay. And I will switch this up, so you'll see about the other pedals, but sometimes I'll put this through the delay as well as a phaser, kind of classic stuff here. Moog Subsequent 25, also analog affair, no effects. So that is going through a Fable granular delay and through a BlueSky Strymon reverb. So this is the classic pure dry Moog sound. Now this Fable thing is pretty amazing. Granular delay, so obviously set your delay time, size of granulars, and this feedback and regeneration really makes it pop. There's a filter on it, there's a modulation. You can really dial this in. So here I'm using this octave doubling, kind of a shimmer type granular delay. Really gives it some length, it gives it some texture. Then it's going through a reverb. I'm using Sprig reverb here. Let's hear just the reverb. Really long decay. I have medium decay. Just to give it some space together. Just give some space, especially to the scales coming from here. Then we move on to Korg Multipoly. This has all the effects that you would want, so not much is needed here. We have a pre-effects. This can be distortion, compression. It's digital, but it's good. Modulations, different choruses, flanges, phasers, and then delay and reverb. So this is good. Roland TR-8S also has pretty decent effects inside that I use. including saturation and compression, but drums need so much love. So electro analog heat is here to provide some additional saturation, bite, and oomph. I will use different setting. Here was purely on enhancement. This is a pretty clean boost, especially focused on the mids and the highs, I think. But what's really cool, you have this envelope follower, so we're able to basically regulate different parts of the saturation. What I'm doing here is taking filtered dirt, basically kind of creating an EQ curve where I'm reducing the amount of filtered dirt on the lowest of the frequencies. That's to keep basically the low end clear, and so we're boosting a lot there. So I'm also catching a little bit snares, so the width is probably going to about 500 hertz or so. There's many ways to use this and to experiment, but I think this really helps give the drums a proper bite when you're doing DAWless recording. The submixer, when used, will just go to a separate stereo channel on a mixer. So the mixer, what we've been waiting for. I'm using the Model 16 here. Model 16 by Tascam is a really powerful mixer, and it works really great for DAWless recording when you're having at least a moderately sized setup. The reason it works really well is because it has really high quality preamps, so you can boost the signal even though that's generally not necessary in the case of analog synthesizers. But it also has compression for your input. This compression can only really be used once you're recording, cannot be adjusted later. But then this is all digital, and you can EQ later on, and it can all be saved on a card. And this is great. You have multiple outputs for the main. You can send signals through this. Really capable. So how is this organized in this case? Well, it kind of follows the organization that you saw here on the Keystep Pro. So first we'll have drums, right? So the main output from the Roland is going to the electro analog heat, and that output is going through these two channels where you can undergo further EQ. You'll notice that just a tiny bit compression where it really more functions as a limiter here once you're recording. Then there's the Moog, which is often used as a bass coming through here. You'll notice the low end cut press, but that's because it was not used for bass in this recording that you heard. Then we have the string machine coming here. Then the next two mono channels is the stereo input from the Oberheim over here. And then again, this is the stereo input from the Korg multi-poly that has some reduced controls. You can have the 4-band EQ, for example. Gain staging, really important, right? If you need a deeper dive into gain staging, check out this video here where I'll really cover how to set up gain staging for DAWless performance and recording. You'll notice they're very similar. Most of these are analog outputs. They're pretty strong, so I will maximize them when they end up going through digital effects. You can see that here. You can see that here as well. Moog, of course, is nowhere close to that. It's a strong signal. This analog signal is also maxed out, but as you can see in the other video, that's doing the best it can do, and then it's further adjusted here. The multi-poly needed a little bit more boost, as you can see. So that basically allows you to have a multi-track recording. You can further edit into DAW, but it's great because you can mix in the EQ here. I will usually do mastering, things like compression and EQing and further things you need to do to really put it over the edge on the computer. But other than that, the recording and EQing can all be taken care of like this. So this is how it works. Again, any questions, please let me know down in the comments. So this setup lets me focus on music and not on moving a mouse. If there's a piece of equipment or a challenge that you find especially frustrating, please put it down in the comments. And if you want a deeper dive in gain staging and how to make sure your levels are right in your DAWless setup, please check this video out. It takes a deep dive into it. Thank you, and see you on the other side.